Hi everybody, I'm Gary. This is my YouTube channel, and every so often I post things about working on a 914 Porsche. This is my 914. I'm sitting inside. I don't know if you can tell. I want you to listen real closely here. Pay attention and listen to this. You hear that? That's something you don't hear very often. That's the sound of a Porsche 914 starting quickly and idling properly. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. Okay, first of all, this particular video is going to address those of you who may have, this is a 73, I should say, 1973 Porsche 2.0. And this is going to address those of you who have fuel-injected cars. I know that they're difficult to work on, but typically this is a very I don't know, I can't think of the word for it, but a very simple system. It's just got a few things that are kind of quirky to about it. Obviously, some of the first things are vacuum lines. The one thing that you want to do when you work on your fuel injection is make sure that you have absolutely no vacuum leaks. It'll affect your idle, can affect all kinds of things. A lot of you may have hunting idles where you get into certain elevations and the car will do this speed up and slow down pulsation idle. It's annoying as hell, and if you get it running decent in a lower elevation, then you take it to a higher elevation. You know, you can pull in places up in the mountains and you pull up to a stop sign and it'll just die on you. A lot of that has to do with the richness and leanness of the fuel mixture. Now there's basically only really two fuel mixtures you can adjust. The screw on top of the control brain here, that'll control your rich lean. I don't suggest screwing with this a whole bunch. You can really mess things up. The nice thing to know about this though is this particular screw right here, it's not just simply a turn threaded screw. It actually has indentations to it to where it clicks. Each time you turn it a little bit, it will click and fall into another slot. And it only goes about half a dozen clicks each way, right or left. What I suggest to do with this is once you know that your dwell is properly set, your plugs are good, your timing is reasonably set, your air fuel mixture is, you know, close to what you think is proper. If you're still having the problem, here's a good place to start. Typically this is done with a meter. You take it to a shop and they use a tube and put in the exhaust pipe and read the output of the carbons and all that other stuff. However, I don't have those things. So what I did is, I'm not sure if you can see it, but we took a felt marker and we marked a notch, a little line corresponding to this notch. And that way, at least I know where this unit started. Then what you do is once the car is fully warmed up, if you're having idling problems, hunting problems, you can turn that screw one click, see if it improves. Turn it one click, see if it improves. Now, I wouldn't do more than a couple of clicks at a time and take the car out and drive it and see how it reacts. If it actually goes worse, obviously you'll go the other direction. But that's a good starting point for you. It's not a be-all to end-all, but it's a good starting point. In my particular case, this was basically where my problem was. After my car was properly tuned, all the vacuum lines and everything were tested and everything was proper there, I still had a hunting problem. This pretty much solved it. Once I got that reasonably tuned, then I could come over and finally dial in the air fuel mixture. And actually I think I'm probably running a little bit more air than I should right now, but it has everything to do with it in the world as far as how that car will run. Now, as far as the purpose of the video today, kind of lied a little bit. I'm not going to take you all the way through fuel injection. What I'm going to take you through is some proper settings and show you some tools that are actually going to help you in a lot more than fuel injection in the car. A lot of people, you've probably seen articles or know about, you know, where you're having problems with your throttle positioner and you look it up as far as how to settle throttle positioner, and most people have absolutely no idea what to do with that. And I'm not going to go into the full setting of it, but throttle positioner is basically this device right here. There's a plug on it here that comes apart, and then there's electrical contacts in there. And when you step on the throttle cable, this opens it up. There's a circuit board in there, you know, kind of like a dial, like a volume control maybe on a stereo and different things, which as you open the throttle, it changes the setting of the fuel injection to give you more gas, you know, and higher idle and, you know, return to idle. Those settings are in there, and it's proper that you set that, or it's mandatory that you set that properly. Now, it's kind of hard to do because you can't really see in there. You don't know what the contacts are. So most people will tell you to do it with an ohm meter and set it at 0 ohms. Okay? The majority of people out there have no idea what an ohm meter is. Okay? This is an ohm meter. And we're basically, in fact, a lot of people don't know what ohms are, but they're a measure of resistance. Okay? Now, let's turn this ohm meter on, and you can see it right there. We've got it set to ohms, and we're going to take and put a 0 ohm load on it. Now you see how that's flickering around? We finally get down to 0.5. I'm not moving anything, but you'll see that meter move, okay? It's finally settled in on 3, 2, 3. So it really doesn't know where it is. We want a 0 ohm load. The biggest problem nowadays, the majority of these meters are digital. It's a lot easier to set this if you have an analog needle that you can look at. What you do, in fact, most of the information on doing that, setting that throttle positioner, is on the Pelican Parts website, real simple. It'll tell you to loosen the screws on the throttle positioner. Let's go back over here. It'll tell you there's one right there. You loosen this screw and one on the other side, and this unit will rotate. And you rotate it all the way down. So basically it's all the way off. Hook your ohm meter to the contacts underneath here. You have to feel for them, and it's really kind of hard to get in there, but you'll know when you got them. Rotate it back until you got a 0 ohm short. And then, you know, maybe just a hair more to the next notch, and stop. Okay. Kind of difficult to do that if you've got one eye on the ohm meter and the other eye on the throttle positioner. So here's the way I suggest to do it. Before I started playing around with this Porsche, I retired from GTE Verizon after 35 years. So I have a lot of this equipment. And before that, I was actually a VW mechanic. So I used to set these things all the time. This is called a tone test generator. Okay. The thing is what it does is, you can see it says off, it says tone, it says battery, and it says resistance. Now this thing's really great for testing fuses, testing light bulbs, circuits in the car. Let's go up here and see if I've got a fuse in here somewhere that we can pull out. A little workshop box. Not there. Probably not there. All my junk. Is there any fuses in here? There's a fuse right there. Okay. This is a blade type fuse, but you know what a fuse is, and you can generally see if one of these is blown. But this is for testing resistance. You hear that when you touch those tones? Okay, now if we took this and we go one-handed and we clip that on there, and we take the other part of the contact and we test there. You can hear that. Okay, we can test that fuse, all right? We know that fuse has continuity. It has resistance. Okay. What I suggest, and these are kind of expensive if you try to buy them new, but you can generally find a test generator like this and a probe on eBay, used condition, for like the $20 range. It would cost you $150 or more if you try to buy a brand new one. But instead of your ohm meter, you hook up these two leads to your throttle positioner. Then you rotate the unit. And instead of seeing or looking for a bouncing around 100 ohm or a 1 ohm short, you will hear and you'll know exactly when your contacts are made or broken. Perfect way to set it. You don't have to look at it. You can concentrate on using your, concentrate on the throttle position and what you're doing there, because that's going to tell you when it's perfectly set. You don't have to see any stupid needle bouncing around. So that's basically how to set the throttle positioner, how to do some basic fuel injector or fuel injection adjustments. The other thing that I want to show you about this is this can be set to tone. Okay. Now, when you have electrical problems with a 914, we all know they're notorious for that. Sometimes it's difficult to tell if you have an open circuit or where that wire is, what fuse it went to. Luckily, these units are all, these 914s are all negative ground, so it's real simple. So hook up your black wire to a ground or somewhere on the engine, you know, body, wherever the ground is. Hook up your red wire to the line that you're trying to trace, or the circuit you're trying to trace. You have a simple probe, turn it on. And when you get near the wire that you're looking for, you're going to hear that. Also, the nice thing about this particular unit, the Tempo unit, Tempo 2000F, is when you actually touch the wire, you should get a solid light. So sometimes they'll come out red and green, sometimes there you are. But you see the green light, and that tells you when you actually have picked a wire. You may pick up the sound a little bit from wires around it, but you'll know when you actually touch the proper wire. So if you have an open wire, it's easy to go back down the wire lead, find out where it's open at, trace where it goes to. You can do a myriad of tests on the 914 with a simple thing like this. Of course, this I learned from working for GTE. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. Obviously, when you work on these, mark your settings, mark your starter settings, mark your timing settings. I usually put a black felt mark, and you can see it on the distributor. You see the black felt mark right there, and someplace where it lines up to. That tells me where the distributor came out at. If I have to change points or anything like that, I know that I'm reasonably within a degree or two of where it was properly timed before. So that's it. If you have any questions, hey, you're welcome to message me. Be glad to help you anywhere I can. Talk to you soon.